This is just like a fun activity for me to do. Just like, is it hot enough? Hi, my name is Nisha Vora, and I'm in the New York Times Cooking Studio Kitchen today, and we're making chickpea spinach masala with tadka. I think of this dish as a loose crossover between chana masala and a creamy North Indian style gravy dish with a little South Indian twist at the end in the form of a tadka, which is a tempered spiced oil where you toast whole spices and sometimes aromatics or ground spices in a hot fat source like oil. You pour everything on top of the finished dish, and it just adds so much pizzazz, flavor, texture, all the good things. We're gonna get started by roughly grinding a few whole spices. We've got coriander seeds, cumin seeds, and some whole green cardamom pods. And I'm just gonna remove the seeds from them. You can just use your fingers to split it open. I like using a mortar and pestle for this particular recipe just because it's a rough crush, so you can control the texture better. You could use a spice grinder or a coffee grinder. You're just going for a rough grind, so just a couple pulses. And if you don't have either of those tools, you can just MacGyver it and put the spices in a Ziploc bag and just bash it up. Oh no, keep it in the bowl. My philosophy is flexible on whole spices versus ground. Yes, you will absolutely get more flavor, more complexity with whole spices, but if it's Wednesday night and I'm trying to get dinner on the table in 30 minutes, I'm just gonna use ground spices. And a rough crush is great, so you don't really need to take it further than this. All right, we've got a 12-inch saute pan over medium-high heat. Add a few tablespoons of any neutral oil, whatever you like. Start with 1 cinnamon stick. Let it sizzle in the oil for 30 seconds or so. Once it starts to smell like a Yankee House candle, add the roughly crushed spices. These will burn quickly, so don't leave them unattended. When you toast spices, you're bringing out the essential oils, the volatile oils that really make the spice flavorful, and that is why Indian food is so delicious. I mean, there are many reasons. Once your spices are a few shades darker, we'll go ahead and add the diced onions, pinch of salt, and I like to finely dice the onions in this recipe just because they kind of like melt into the finished dish instead of having distinct kind of crunchy onion pieces. You want to cook these for about 5-7 minutes just to soften them, get a little bit of color on them. You don't need to fully brown them. You can really smell the spices and the cinnamon and the cumin and the onion. It smells like an Indian auntie came over and like made you a delicious meal and you just want to give her a big hug. So now it's time for our trifecta of garlic, some freshly grated ginger, and my favorite, some green chilies. These are serrano peppers. I personally use 3 because I like things spicy. You could always do 1 pepper. You could even remove the membranes, which is where most of the heat lives. There is a fair amount of richness in this dish, so it won't taste like 3 serrano peppers. We're also gonna add some ground turmeric at this stage and a little bit of tomato paste. My mom always taught me to toast ground turmeric a little bit longer than you would other ground spices, just because if you don't, it kind of tastes raw. Like if you've ever got an $8 golden latte, and it just had that like musky aroma. That's what happens if you don't cook turmeric long enough. So that's why we're giving it a good amount of time in the pan. After about 90 seconds, we're gonna go ahead and add the tomatoes. This is a pound of diced tomatoes. And we're gonna use any of the juices to deglaze all the brown bits at the bottom of the pot. Also add in some salt. If you can't get reasonably decent fresh tomatoes, or you just want a shortcut, you can absolutely use canned tomatoes. You want to cook them down for about 5 minutes or until they're almost jammy and you can kind of see the oil sizzling out from them. That's a great sign that it's time to move on to the next step. At this point, you have what my dad would call a proper masala, which is basically a flavorful, spiced, aromatic base where you can add all of your main ingredients and they'll taste super delicious. We're gonna go in with 2 cans of chickpeas that have been drained and rinsed. We've got a can of coconut milk. This is full fat coconut milk, no added sugar. Save that for your pina colada. And you wanna be using a saute pan with high sides like this, because as you can see, the liquid will bubble out of your pan if you're using a shallow frying pan. I'm also gonna add a teaspoon of brown sugar just to balance some of the acidity from the tomatoes and the spiciness from the serrano peppers. And then a little unconventional, actually a lot unconventional, but we're gonna add 2 tablespoons of almond butter. I find that in a creamy gravy style dish like this, almond butter or cashew butter or tahini just adds this like unexpected, delightful nuttiness. It adds mouthfeel, it adds extra richness, and just makes everything taste better. And then we'll pop the lid on this and simmer it for just 15 minutes. The coconut milk and the almond butter will kind of thicken everything. It'll give the coconut milk a time to mellow out so you won't really taste coconut at the end. All right, let's check on our chickpea masala. Ooh, look at that color. Ooh, it's so pretty. I've got some chopped baby spinach here, and this is kind of my hack for any creamy curry or soup, is just fold in some chopped spinach at the end. You get your greens in, you feel good about yourself, you feel superior to everyone else who's not eating greens, and it just like wilts into the dish, you barely even notice it. And 2 teaspoons of garam masala, which is often used as a finishing spice. It's a mixture of pre-toasted spices, so you don't really need to toast it in advance. And the spinach will wilt in 1 or 2 minutes, so it's quite fast. All right, so we can kill the heat and just a few finishing touches. We've got a little bit of fresh lime juice just to make everything pop. Some freshly cracked black pepper. We'll go ahead and remove that cinnamon stick so you don't bite down on it. And I like to finish with some chopped fresh cilantro. Just awakens everything up, adds a beautiful color. If you have fresh mint on hand, that's my favorite. It adds lovely herbal sweetness, but if you don't have it, totally optional. Now this dish is already gonna be delicious as is, but we're gonna take it over the top with our tadka, which is like the ultimate flavor enhancer. Making a tadka is a very classic Indian cooking technique. It involves taking a bit of oil or ghee, heating it up in a small pan, and then you pour the entire mixture, including the oil, on top of your finished dish so you get extra flavor, extra texture. It is such a delight. Before we get started, I do want to walk through a couple of tips for making a tadka because everything moves very quickly, so you want to measure out all of your spices and place them in the order you're going to be using them in the recipe because it moves very fast and you don't want anything to burn. We've got our small skillet over medium heat, and I'm gonna add a little bit of coconut oil. I particularly love the flavor of coconut oil with mustard seeds and curry leaves, but if you don't like coconut oil, just use your favorite cooking oil. Our oil feels hot enough, so we'll add our mustard seeds. And these are gonna go in first because they take longer to cook. You can find these at Indian grocery stores or online. And you wanna keep things moving as you're cooking, either by doing a little swirl or by using your spatula because the spices will burn. Once they start to pop or sputter, that's when it's time to add the next spice. Got some poppage. We're gonna go in with the cumin seeds. And cumin seeds are something you should pay attention to with your eyes because those will brown pretty quickly. And you want them to get a few shades darker, but not like totally brown because then they'll burn. For the asafoetida, if you're using it, it's just a pinch or two. It is funky and adds this incredible umami flavor. It is optional, so if you don't have it, you can skip it. And this is where you get to use your nose, your sense of smell, because you're gonna smell it pretty quickly, like 10 seconds is really all you need. Woo! It's funky. And now we're gonna add some fresh curry leaves. Again, if you can't find these, you can skip them, but they add this incredible herbal, kind of citrusy flavor. And they might sputter up because there's moisture in them. You're gonna be using your sense of vision. You want them to shrivel up a little bit, but not completely brown and get like crunchy hard. Take this off the heat, and then I'm just gonna stir in a little bit of red Indian chili powder. While the tadka is still hot, you want to pour it on top of the entire dish. That's a nice sizzle. Oh God, it smells so good. It's time to serve. I'm so excited. It smells fantastic. And everyone else in the room also thinks it smells fantastic. It's not just me like tooting my own horn. We've got some delicious flatbread on the side, which is my preference, but white rice, brown rice, whatever grain you like is also fine. Eating time, the best of times. It is so creamy and luxurious. I don't think anyone would know it's vegan. It's got a nice amount of heat and spice, but it's freshened up by the mint and cilantro. You can find this recipe and more of my recipes at New York Times Cooking. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.
How do you feel about the freezer on peppers?
honestly, it's not that spicy. Like, I want more. I want like 5. So do with that what you will.